Started, so don't swear. Just say anything you don't want recorded. Okay, right, it's 7 o'clock, evening members. Those of you who are physically present in the room with me tonight, please switch off your electronic device, hopefully. Anyone remotely participating, please keep your camera and microphone off. But if you do wish to speak, then please indicate. Yeah, if you can, yes. If you can mute those who are virtually attending the meeting tonight, please. This meeting will be recorded and data collected during the recording of the meeting will be retained in accordance with the Council's data retention policy. The recording of the meeting may be added to the Council's website. Members accessing the meeting remotely should use their Swale or KCC laptop to participate virtually. We can see who you are. If you join using the link on the website or a mobile tablet device, then we may not be able to identify you and you may not be recorded as in remote attendance. Please speak loudly and clearly. We're in a different room tonight. And we don't have to worry about switching off mics because we don't have that function. So welcome everyone. Tonight we have in attendance, we have Place Joanne Johnson. We have Strategic Programmes and Assets Manager Kieran Mansfield. Leisure and Technical Services Manager Jay Jenkins. We have Seafront and Engineering Manager Mike Knowles. And Democratic Services Officer is Philippa Richardson. There isn't a fire drill tonight, so those in attendance should leave via the fire exits either direction. Don't use the lift, and please walk. Does anyone need assistance? No. Good. Okay. Apologies for absence. So I currently have apologies from Councillor Mark Tucker. I've got Councillor Anne Kavanagh, who is substituted by Councillor Mark Last. I have Councillor Alex Eyre. I have Councillor Leanne Moore, who is substituted by Councillor Tara No. I've got Councillor Simon Clark, who is substituted by Councillor Tony Winkless. Councillor Hayden Braun. Oh, sorry. Oh, no, I'm here. I was going to say, I'm sure I've seen you. You're right in front of me. Oh, just Peter Marchington, Councillor Peter Marchington. Right. I don't need to apologise for you. Right, members. We need to approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 30th of January 2025. Minute numbers 594 to 602 as a correct record. Do you agree? Agreed. Great, that's agreed. Okay, do we have any declarations of interest? Councillor Tara, no.
My husband's on the World Town Council, so I will be the local representative in that particular item.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? No. Right, excellent. Right, item 5. So this is procurement provision of RNLI lifeguard service. So, Councillor. Officer, Martin.
No, a mere officer. Thank you, Chair. Yes.
See, I've been inquiring all day. I'm sorry. My brain's gone somewhere else.
Yes, so the report is hopefully fairly straightforward. Requesting that the committee approves the awarding of the beach lifeguard contract to the Royal National Lifeboat Institution from the 1st of April 2025 for a period of 5 years. They've previously undertaken the contract for us Hopefully the report is fairly straightforward, but any questions I'm more than happy to answer. Thank you.
Members, anyone got any questions? No, I have to say, I'm really pleased that the RNLI have come on board. I know over the last few years, it's been a bit of a journey with, especially with recruitment and things like that. So I think probably all members feel the same, that it is, it's a good service they provide, and they provide an awful lot of capital equipment with it as well. So, right, members, vote. We'll agree as the recommendations as per item 1. Yep. Is that unanimous? Yeah. That's all right, it's not. It's a visiting member. Okay, so that's unanimous. Thank you very much, members. Nice and easy. To go. That's it.
I think it was like that. Yeah.
Reputation, you know. Hang on to it. Okay, item 6. This is the land of the rear of Cornborough Guild Hall. You? Yes, one, right.
Okay.
And I know that Councillor Whiting wants to speak to you. I'll allow you to speak. Yeah.
So just by way of introduction, this relates to a piece of land throughout approximately 50 square metres. As it says, the land at the rear of Queen Guild Hall. It has stood vacant for a number of years. There is a history attached to it. There was a planned transaction that with a local rowing club involving the movement of the rowing club from another site we own. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened, and now it's been confirmed that interest has fallen away. And consequently, the land meets the threshold in terms of being surplus land. At the point where we were thinking of coming to committee around it being surplus and for disposal, through conversations we were having with Queenborough Town Council, they indicated an interest in that land, and the report essentially reflects those conversations. And that discussion has expanded slightly to involve the Queenborough Guild Hall, which they currently occupy under licence, and 44 High Street, which, whilst it has a separate address, essentially forms part of the same property. And the recommendations in the report look to delegate to the head of place to negotiate with Queenborough Town Council and attempt to agree terms of disposal of parcel of land to them for the community use they're looking to do so, although we need more detail on that. It's essentially for storage and for other services, including potentially a food bank to the local community. And that would be as a package, including Queenborough Guild Hall and 44 High Street. And we'd set ourselves, as per the disposals policy that was approved at the last committee, a 12-month horizon for trying to come to terms on that. And second part of the recommendation is to delegate, if we reach that point, the inaction of the disposal to the head of place.
Okay, thank you. Members, well, first of all, Councillor White, you're a visiting member, so we'll let you go first.
Thanks, Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I support this. I've spoken to the town clerk. They very much want this to happen for the reasons set out in the report, as with the history that Kieran's just outlined. They need the extra space for the food bank. It's an enormously, as I say, popular food bank is the wrong word, but it's a much needed and very well used food bank. And the space that they need, I think, is more than justifies taking the action that's proposed in the papers here. With regard, the papers do suggest that the whole thing's linked with the Guild Hall. To read it, and it talks about to include the transfer of the Guild Hall. Certainly, the town council have indicated to me their interest in looking at that, and I know they've already requested some surveys from the council, from this council. And some average running costs, so they can make an informed decision about whether they take the Guild Hall on. I think that's a very sensible approach from them. So I wouldn't want to tie their hands to having to make them do that, or make that a condition of the transfer of the land at the rear, because I think the transfer of the land at the rear would enable them to get on with the food bank issue. And then they can consider carefully whether or not they should take it. It would make sense to take both titles on. In fact, even the one next door, the house next door as well, which they occupy under licence currently for an extended part of the office. I can't think what number plot it is on here. Number 42, it would be, wouldn't it? Joanne, is that right? 44. So yeah, I'm very much in favour. I hope members will approve this, and also make sure that the officers and the town council have that little bit of wriggle room over the Guildhall, because I think that's a very important thing for them. I think they would like to keep it in the ownership of the people of Queenborough when all the other stuff happens around devolution, and we know that's coming down the tracks. But as long as the wording here seems to tie that in perhaps a little more strictly. I don't know if that was intended, Joanne, but
Yes,
it was. But anyway, that's kind of where they've asked me to pitch for them, so I've done just that. Thank you very much, Chair.
Members, who wishes to speak? Oh, yes, we've got obviously the exempt appendix. Does anyone want to talk specifically to that? Because if they do, we will need to go into private session. But if you feel you can debate it without going to private session, we can continue. Yeah, all agreed to continue? No one showing me otherwise. Right, okay, we will continue in public session then. We don't need to talk about the detail of the blue paper item.
Yes, I would agree, yes. Outlining what,
Sorry.
I would agree with what Councillor White said, it's a constructive, proposal to, as I read it, to make good use of this land. I don't actually know the land, I physically looked at it, but if I read correctly, it basically left to be in a mess. So, yes, just.
Councillor Wise?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think thank you to Councillor Whiting, because I think it is helpful for members to have that input as we're discussing this. And I am supportive of the recommendations, which is ultimately around exploring this further and negotiating what they actually want, and getting assurances on both sides that will come from that. And I think that's the important part of this, which I think members can be assured of, because we have a policy that we've looked at, and it's through that that obviously the clarification around what exactly can back this up to make sure that everyone's assured on either side as they enter that agreement. So I'm very happy for that to go ahead, and I think knowing obviously the proposed use is to support the food bank, obviously is something that members I would hope are very supportive of, and anything that enables them to continue doing that work and frees up the space, you know, if the whole thing goes through together, frees up space for how they wish to use the internal side for their use is stuff that hopefully we can get behind. But in terms of what the recommendations are actually asking for, I'm very supportive, because it's through those that both parties will be able to get the assurances that they need. So very happy to support the recommendations.
Councillor Thompson?
So same really, support that. I think it's great to see a bit of honest devolution if it happens, transferring down to local use and local thoughts. It'd be great if there's a little bit of growing space at the back of it in the sort of derelict area. But I just like to reiterate that really. It's good to see it. Hopefully it works out as local. So.
Anyone else? And I think really just to pick up on what Councillor White said, it's you know, this is obviously set out as a package, because I think there are some assets that may be more burdensome than others, and some that may have more of a commercial value. So I think it's really give the free rein to the officers within the scope of the wording that's currently drafted, I think is the right course of action. So, okay, let's take this to the vote then. All those in favour? So that's, apart from the one abstention, which has already been recorded, so that's unanimous apart from councillor Mayo. Okay. All right, we're free to go now.
You're welcome to say.
The thing is really, really well used.
Right, members, okay, without further ado, item 7, UK SPF 2025 to 2026. So, over to you, for amendment.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is regarding the extension of the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and the Rural England Prosperity Fund. The government have agreed to have decided to extend what was previously a 3-year programme from 2022 to March 2025. Essentially, I think, as a stopgap measure, while it considers the wider funding landscape that it wishes to establish going forward. So allocations have been made to Swell Borough Council as before, using a similar sort of approach to those allocations or methodology. The allocation through UK Shared Prosperity Fund, which is borough-wide revenue and capital funding, is 554,000. And more recently, we received an allocation 2.5 weeks ago from the Rural England Prosperity Fund of 150,000. That is entirely capital and is geographically limited to much of the borough, but does exclude Urban Sittingbourne. It's based on a DEFRA mapping system, which is overcomplicated and ridiculous. We've been through a process internally, speaking to service areas and had approaches from external organisations, and looked at what the existing programme has done and what that looked and felt like. We put together a list of potential project programmes for inclusion. They were taken forward to the established Prosperity Fund member working group, which discussed that, but discussed some of the projects, but also, perhaps more importantly, the principles around which choices should be made. And those kind of core principles are set out in the report at 2.8. And we come up effectively with an outline programme, which is at Appendix 1. And the recommendation is that members approve that as an outline programme for expenditure going forward for the 25-26 year. The second recommendation is that the Prosperity Fund member working group continues under a slightly revised updated terms of reference, which is set out at Appendix 2, and that the head of place is given delegated authority, firstly to approve grants to third parties, because there remains a grant element within the proposed programme to outside organisations, and that where changes are considered to be material as defined by government, and where individual projects can't proceed or are significantly reduced in scale by more than 50%, any changes will be done in consultation with that member working group, if that's what how members decide to approve in terms of a governance arrangement.
Members, any questions? Anything? Councillor Lars?
Just really under section 3, about approved grants to third parties. Is there any indication of the sort of size of these grants are likely to be, and what they're likely to be for, in terms of they're going to be capital or revenue, really? And it says the following application and assessment process. Is that in place, or is that about to come?
So the kind of the proposed, as it's proposed, it's an extension of the existing community infrastructure grants. So at present, unless members decided they wanted to change the terms of those grants, they run at up to £10,000. They are mostly for capital expenditure, and where it will be rural, it'll be a mix of rural enterprise money and rural prosperity money and UK SPF money. Where it's UK SPF, I think the scheme is written so that there is scope for using some small elements of non-capital, so revenue funding, where it's preparatory work for a project that would be capital, but that would be limited to UK Shared Prosperity Fund and small in nature. So essentially, it would be a capital scheme. And community infrastructure grants have covered a very wide range of asks from community groups, from improving the carbon performance of a community or village hall, through to trying to think of other examples now. Of course, I can't recall them, and there's hundreds, or it feels like there are hundreds. So, and in terms of the approval process, that is established, and again, we would put that out before we started and promoted grants, so that members could review it in case they wanted to change anything. But I would imagine essentially it would stay the same.
Thank you for that.
It's a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
I think it would be. Especially having done all the COVID grants. and all
Well,
that. It was a good learning process.
Chris's fingers may look a bit bare.
Councillor Wise.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to come in on the back of that, as someone who's been on the working group for this, given that the money is essentially an extension for 1 year, I think that's a very sensible approach to take, so that we're not having to take up too much time in reinventing the process, when really we want to get that money out there, we want to get it spent, we want to make sure that the list of projects which I support it is underway, and the groups that take advantage of this can instantly give their expressions of interest. And I suppose one of my only concerns was sort of the struggle we had with certain aspects when it comes to capital and people's interest in that. That obviously, hopefully, there's lots of people wanting to come forward to groups wanting to come forward for that sort of stuff, but that we therefore are able to get going with this as soon as possible, so that those expressions can start. If we need to keep then we've got this flexibility, timescale, which we need to do so.
I was just going to say, I mean, that is kind of a nagging concern at the back of my head, and this would be something, you know, to discuss. But an approach could be that we go out in a blaze of publicity, obviously once we're out of the pre-election period, and then we almost treat it as a one and done approach to the grants. And if we don't happen to spend all the money, we then seek to reallocate that money elsewhere in the programme or to projects that we didn't include.
Okay, right. We use the usual databases like Swellmeans Business to distribute that.
Yeah, and the community, all various community networks.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Parishes.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. So on the working group, I just want to check. A, the setup, but B, in terms of the timing of it, because we were in the morning, and I appreciate we were all busy working and trying to fit things in. So trying to shift it around to later in the afternoon is probably the best time. I think we've worked out, if that's still okay for everyone, where the proposals we're having those. So are we? I'm getting a general feeling there's a consensus in the room. There's no one who wants to strike out and propose anything different. So are we happy to take all three recommendations together and vote on those? Yeah, okay, lovely. Right. Fantastic. Right, let's take it to the vote then, unless there's anyone who wants to speak. Last call. Hello. Right, let's go to the vote then. Right, all those in favour? Unanimous. Love this. You know what you're doing. Brilliant. So, yes, it is. Absolutely. Right, forward decisions. Have my print out. Right, so we have forward decisions reports. We've got 4 items on there. We've got Orme Place and Princess Street contract award. We've got Great East Hall, future of the land. We've got the old library in Sheerness, review of disposal decision. And then we've got the DCS lettings policy brief. Is there anyone who wants to comment or add to? Wait. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so members might recall that the markets tender was on forward plan. Values that come in are below the threshold. We suspected they might. It would only be if somebody was looking to operate all 3 markets collectively, it would need to come here we've not got anything of that ilk, so therefore that's come off the board plan. We're still doing it, we're not doing the markets, but it just doesn't need to come to this committee.
And I know,
For a decision.
just so we've got some, I suppose, visibility on that, how are we doing in that process? Bring that one
I'm
on
trying
here.
to think what I can say in open session.
Oh, okay.
I think, certainly one of the markets with their
Okay,
contract signing, I think, we have some issues to work through with the other. I'm not, I
okay.
think we are
We-
working through those, and we will,
Give us an
we are
update.
looking at a contract extension.
Okay,
What is that interim?
okay, so we'll get an update probably at the next meeting. By the time we get to the next meeting.
Oh, yes.
Okay, that's fine, just a plan. I think members are quite, because obviously it's quite a visible service there. Right, okay, so we done on forward decisions, anyone? Anyone? That it? That is it. Yes. Wow, look at that, 5 minutes, you are so efficient, you're free to go. So we can close at 7:25.
Yeah, so right now, this is.